What a great question. I thought that I discussed this before, but apparently not. So, nevertheless, 9 years ago, 2014, I think, I was working a show for Big 12, and it was, big broadcast, whatever. And so I had set the show up, and then I went to my brother's, or sorry, I didn't. The night before I was at my brother's house, my mom was there and everything, and they were like, why do you keep touching your chest like that? I was like, I don't know. I'm just, it hurts. It's been hurting for a couple of days. And they're like, you need to go see a doctor right now. I'm like, I don't have time to go see a doctor. I got to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. And like, you need to see a doctor right now. I'm like, I'm not going to see a doctor. Well, it was pretty painful. And by the time morning came around, I was like, oof, I am not doing good. Like, I'm feeling a lot of bad symptoms. So I showed up to work and I was like, look, I really need to go to the doctor today. I'm pretty sure I'm dying. And they're like, okay. And I was like, so if you could have some people help me out, this is kind of a big deal what we're doing. And, you probably want to have some people help me. Yeah. I ended up hanging every projector. I ended up doing all the mapping. I did all the blend stuff. I did all the cabling. And I was like, cool, I'm done. Can I get out of here so I can go to the doctor? And they're like, well, can you sit with the client for a little bit? I'm like, yeah, I'll sit with the client for a little bit. And the client kept me there till midnight. And I was not doing good. And then I had to be back at 5 o'clock in the morning again. And so I got home and I was like, I'm probably gonna die. So I get there the next morning. I was like, look, I am not one to miss out on work. I mean, I'm kind of known for working, but I'm probably gonna die. So you need to get like anybody that knows anything about video and replace me. I'll teach them what I've done. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And they go, you don't look so good. I'm like, right. Like I've been saying for the last 2 days, like, I think I'm having a heart attack and dying. They go, really? It's like, yeah, yes. And so this went on. And finally, they just kept kind of blowing me off. And I said, you see all those 50 broadcast cameras right there? Every one of those is going to turn themselves on me when I die right here. You're going to have to push me over and like cover me in drape or something like that because I'm about to die. And they go, oh, you're serious? I'm like, how many times do I have to tell you this? Yeah, I'm serious. So they get somebody to come over, and he's younger guy, and he was an audio guy. I was like, I don't care who you give me. You can give me a janitor at this point. So I showed him like, hey, here's what to do. This is your show. It's all set up. These are your cues, and here's your cue sheet. I'm out of here. And then the client looks over and goes, oh, do we have a look for this other thing? And I was like, he doesn't know how to do that. So I'm like, let me make a look for you real quick. And I did. I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to the hospital. Where's the nearest hospital? I'm like, oh, it's Oak Cliff. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going there. If I don't die from this thing, I'm going to get shot or something like that. So I drive all the way to Arlington. I missed my turns a couple times. I finally get there. I'm dying on my way in. And as I'm walking in, this lady's walking out. She goes, oh, you don't look so good. You okay? I'm like, no, I'm having a heart attack. I'm dying. She goes, oh, okay. And keeps walking. I get in the ER, and there's nobody there. So I ring the bell a couple times. I throw my driver's license at her and my insurance card. And I was like, I'm having a heart attack. I'm dying. I don't have time for your paperwork. Get me in there right now. And like chest pain to the front. And so they bring me up. And they put some nitrous something underneath my tongue or whatever that makes me better for a minute. And they kind of keep me there for observation, put EKGs and all these things on me. And after, several days, they're like, you don't have heart attack symptoms. I'm like, I'm telling you I do. And so I was like, look, I've got pain in my arm. I've got pain underneath my other arm. I've got pain down the inside of my legs. I feel all these symptoms, shortness of breath, whatever. And the doctor goes, you have shortness of breath? I'm like, yes. I mean, how many times do I have to tell you this? I was okay. So then they take me in. And they're like, we're going to have to inject dye into your heart, directly into your heart. And I'm like, whatever. So they had to put a tube, a catheter, up my femoral artery. So your femoral artery is next to, your femur. Your femur is your thigh bone. Up in there, and then weave it up into my heart, and then inject dye. And they're like, we're just going to give you something for the pain. And I was like, here's where you're wrong. You see, I'm a former addict, a former drug addict, and I don't take narcotics at all. I don't care how bad the pain is. And they go, oh, this is going to hurt. I was like, I understand pain. I'm not going to have an addiction after this. I'd rather die than have an addiction again. And I'm like, ugh. Can we just give you something for the pain? I'm like, no, you cannot give me something for the pain. And finally, like, whatever. So they they slide this catheter up my vein into my heart. And I see them all mumbling, and they're like, oh, that's the wrong size. So they pull it back out. And I'm like, this really does hurt. and they get another one, they put that back in, and they're like, oh, we got the wrong size again. I'm like, this kind of hurts. Can you please get it right? And they pull that back up. 4 times this happens. And finally they inject dye in my heart, and I'm looking at it up on the monitor, and they go, you don't have a heart, you didn't have a heart attack. You got no blockage or anything like that. You have myocarditis. Now, this was 9 years ago. This was before the jab, and so it was much less common. They said like 1,000 people a year got it. And for those of you that don't know, myocarditis is an infection in your heart. So your heart gets an infection, they don't know how or whatever at the time, and basically it was only pumping 30% of my blood. And so they had to put me on beta blockers, and the beta blockers basically slow down your heart, because your heart is the slowest healing organ in your body. Your eyes are the fastest healing organ in your body. You have to be able to see where you're going, but your heart never stops. And so I was on beta blockers for a while, and they kept telling me, like, you're gonna be on these for the rest of your life. And I'm like, well, this is another time in your life when you're wrong. And so I secretly weaned myself off of the beta blockers. And, you know, I work hard all the time, and if there's any symptoms, I don't know about them. I mean, my whole body hurts all the time, but that's perfectly normal. And it's been 9 years. So that's what happened to me 9 years ago. And I guess the key takeaways are, I don't know, I'm dumb. I keep working even though I'm about to die. I did really appreciate everything when I came back out of it. I was like, have you tasted cherries? And people were like, yeah, John, we've tasted cherries. I'm like, they are delicious. I just appreciated every little thing in life. And I think that coming close to death really does help us to stay humble, to realize how fragile that we are, to love people, to be more compassionate to them. Once we realize how fragile, you know, when we're young, we feel like we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And then time passes and you realize all this could be over in an instant with no warning, and it wouldn't even be a real mistake, just something happens. And then you see somebody else get hurt and you're like, I'm so sorry, I know how hard this is. Let me stand beside you. Let me stand beside you so that what is bending does not break. Let me weather this storm with you. And I think that it gives you more compassion. So anyway, that's the story.